He'd been pumping gas and checking oil for 16 years, working the full-service station on Route 9, helping customers with tire pressure and windshield cleaning. Just another elderly attendant trying to supplement his retirement income, until contaminated fuel started damaging engines across 3 counties, and suddenly the quiet gas station worker revealed why he understood petroleum chemistry that stumped state environmental investigators. Franklin Samuel Kowalski was 78 years old, with gray hair that showed streaks of the black it had once been, and alert hazel eyes that seemed to analyze everything they encountered with scientific precision. His weathered hands bore the permanent stains of petroleum products and automotive fluids, while his voice carried the careful cadence of someone who understood that accuracy in technical matters could prevent expensive mistakes or dangerous accidents. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we continue this incredible tale of hidden expertise and environmental protection, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories about quiet guardians deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. Miller's full-service station occupied a corner lot on Route 9 in rural Pennsylvania, where interstate travelers and local residents could receive the kind of personal automotive service that had largely disappeared from modern gas stations. The facility offered fuel pumping, oil changes, tire service, and basic mechanical repairs that kept vehicles running safely along highways that connected small towns to urban centers. Frank had worked there for 16 years, providing the thorough service that customers appreciated even when self-serve alternatives offered lower prices. He checked fluid levels, inspected tire conditions, cleaned windshields properly, and offered maintenance advice that helped people avoid expensive repairs by addressing problems before they became serious mechanical failures. His approach to customer service combined technical competence with patient explanation, making automotive maintenance understandable to people who knew little about engine operation while ensuring that safety-critical systems received appropriate attention. "Mrs. Patterson, your oil level is fine, but I'm noticing that your brake fluid looks a bit dark. That usually means it's time for a brake system flush. It's not an emergency, but you should have it checked within the next month." These consultations represented more than routine service. They were informal automotive safety inspections that prevented accidents by identifying potential mechanical problems before they caused vehicle failures on busy highways. The local community had come to trust Frank's expertise and honesty. Unlike some service providers who might recommend unnecessary repairs, Frank's suggestions were always conservative and clearly explained. His knowledge of automotive systems impressed mechanics at other shops, while his patient teaching style had helped many customers understand basic maintenance that extended vehicle life. What none of them realized was that Dr. Franklin Kowalski had spent 39 years managing petroleum operations with expertise that extended far beyond automotive fuel service. Frank lived alone in a modest house 10 minutes from the gas station, a well-maintained single-story structure that reflected the organized mindset of someone who had spent decades managing complex industrial operations where attention to detail could prevent environmental disasters or equipment failures that affected entire regions. The main living areas were comfortable but unpretentious, furnished with pieces that prioritized function over style. But the home office revealed technical capabilities that exceeded gas station attendant requirements. The walls displayed engineering diagrams and certificates spanning nearly 30 years of petroleum industry work, refinery process designs that had improved fuel quality and safety, environmental compliance systems that had protected groundwater from contamination, and quality control procedures that had ensured petroleum products met stringent specifications for both performance and environmental protection. Bookshelves held technical references that most petroleum engineers would consider graduate-level material. Petrochemical processing manuals, environmental remediation procedures, and analytical chemistry texts for detecting contaminants in fuel systems. Filing cabinets contained project documentation for refinery improvements that had affected fuel quality throughout multi-state regions. And in a secure drawer that seemed excessive for gas station employment were credentials that would have transformed how Pennsylvania's petroleum industry viewed their rural service station attendant. A Ph.D. in chemical engineering from Penn State University, professional engineer license with specialization in petroleum refining, and consulting agreements with major oil companies that had shaped how the industry approached fuel quality control and environmental protection. Dr. Franklin Samuel Kowalski, one of the petroleum industry's leading experts in fuel quality control and contamination prevention. His career had focused on refinery operations that produced gasoline, diesel, and heating oil, developing quality control procedures that ensured petroleum products met performance specifications while preventing environmental contamination that could affect groundwater and soil.
The work had taken Frank from laboratory analysis that identified fuel quality problems to refinery management that oversaw production of millions of gallons of petroleum products daily. His expertise had been crucial in developing industry standards for fuel additives, contamination detection, and environmental compliance that protected both consumers and natural resources. Retirement in 2008 had been voluntary rather than mandatory. Frank had accumulated enough years in petroleum engineering to retire with full pension while still young enough to pursue work that didn't involve the corporate pressures and regulatory complexity that had characterized his professional career. The gas station position wasn't about financial necessity. His industry pension provided adequate retirement income. It was about staying connected to petroleum products and automotive service in ways that served individual customers rather than corporate interests, using technical knowledge to help people maintain their vehicles rather than managing industrial-scale fuel production. But 39 years of petroleum engineering expertise doesn't disappear because someone changes from refinery management to retail fuel service, and Frank's trained eye continued monitoring fuel quality and automotive performance issues that could indicate larger problems in petroleum supply chains. Thursday, November 14th, started like every other workday. Frank arrived at Miller's Station at 6:30 a.m., checked overnight deliveries of gasoline and diesel fuel, and prepared for another day of providing automotive service that helped customers maintain safe and reliable transportation. The morning proceeded normally until 10:30 a.m., when Mrs. Henderson returned to the station with concerns about her vehicle's performance after filling up the previous day. "Frank, something's wrong with my car. It's making knocking sounds, and the engine seems rough. I've never had problems like this before." Frank's petroleum engineering training activated pattern recognition developed through decades of fuel quality investigation. "Mrs. Henderson, when did these symptoms start, and have you used fuel from any other stations recently?" "Right after I filled up here yesterday. I haven't been anywhere else for gas in over a week." Dr. Kowalski had encountered similar scenarios during his refinery career when contaminated fuel batches had caused engine problems that required investigation to identify source contamination and prevent additional damage to vehicles and equipment. "Mrs. Henderson, let me check our fuel delivery records and test the gasoline quality. In the meantime, I'd recommend not driving the vehicle until we understand what's causing the engine problems." Over the next 3 hours, Frank conducted informal interviews with other customers who had purchased fuel recently. What he discovered confirmed his worst fears. 8 vehicles were experiencing similar engine problems after purchasing gasoline from Miller Station during the past 4 days. Dr. Franklin Kowalski recognized the constellation of symptoms immediately. Someone was experiencing systematic contamination in their fuel supply chain, affecting products from the regional distribution terminal that supplied multiple gas stations throughout the area. The engine damage patterns suggested contamination with water, ethanol concentrations above specification limits, or chemical additives that weren't approved for automotive use. Frank needed to investigate further while protecting his customers from potentially dangerous fuel that could cause expensive engine damage or safety hazards. He began systematic analysis using techniques learned during 39 years of petroleum quality investigation. Chemical testing of fuel samples using portable equipment he maintained for quality verification, documentation of contamination patterns and distribution timing, and coordination with affected customers to track symptom development and vehicle damage.
What he discovered was worse than routine fuel quality problems. The contamination showed characteristics of intentional petroleum tampering rather than accidental processing defects. Chemical signatures indicated deliberate addition of compounds that would cause engine damage while being difficult to detect through standard fuel testing procedures, affecting gasoline distributed from the regional terminal to maximize impact while minimizing detection. Dr. Kowalski was looking at evidence of petroleum terrorism designed to damage vehicles and undermine confidence in fuel supply systems. He needed to report his findings to appropriate authorities, but doing so would require explaining how a gas station attendant possessed the expertise to conduct petroleum contamination analysis that exceeded capabilities of most commercial laboratories. Dr. Kowalski faced a choice that would define his impact on fuel safety. He could file routine reports through commercial channels, hope that EPA investigators would eventually identify similar contamination through their own testing, and risk allowing petroleum terrorism to continue while bureaucratic processes slowly addressed threats that were actively damaging vehicles throughout the region. Or he could use 39 years of expertise in petroleum quality control to protect fuel supply integrity the way he'd been trained to do when similar threats emerged during his corporate career. Dr. Kowalski made his decision in approximately 20 seconds. He contacted the EPA's Office of Enforcement through professional networks that retained his security clearances, identified himself by credentials that carried immediate authority among petroleum safety officials, and provided detailed analysis of contamination evidence that indicated coordinated petroleum terrorism affecting fuel supply chains across multiple counties. EPA Enforcement. This is Dr. Franklin Kowalski, retired petroleum engineer. I'm documenting systematic fuel contamination at multiple retail locations that indicates intentional tampering with gasoline supplies from the regional distribution terminal. Dr. Kowalski, this is Special Agent Maria Santos. Can you provide specific details about the contamination patterns you've identified? Frank's voice carried the clinical precision that had characterized thousands of similar reports during his corporate career. Agent Santos, I'm observing engine damage patterns consistent with water contamination, ethanol concentration above EPA specifications, and chemical additives that suggest deliberate fuel tampering. The contamination appears to originate from the terminal distribution level rather than individual retail locations. Sir, our preliminary testing hasn't detected the kind of contamination you're describing. How did you identify these chemical signatures? Agent Santos, I'm conducting analysis using petroleum-grade testing equipment and have 39 years of experience in fuel quality control and contamination investigation. The chemical patterns I'm documenting match deliberate tampering rather than accidental processing defects. Within 12 hours, federal agents specializing in petroleum crime were working with Frank to analyze evidence that revealed one of the largest fuel terrorism operations in American history. The contamination had affected fuel supplies to over 60 gas stations across 3 states, designed to cause widespread vehicle damage that would be attributed to poor fuel quality rather than criminal activity. Dr. Kowalski, how did you identify the contamination patterns so quickly when our standard testing procedures missed them? Agent Santos asked during the investigation coordination. Frank looked around Miller Station that had been transformed into a federal crime scene investigation center. Agent Santos, I've spent 39 years learning to recognize exactly these patterns. Petroleum contamination has specific signatures that become obvious when you understand fuel chemistry and distribution systems. My position at the retail level provided direct access to affected products and customer damage reports that revealed contamination effects before they appeared in federal monitoring systems. The investigation that followed exposed a domestic terrorism network that had been systematically contaminating fuel supplies as part of a coordinated attack on American transportation infrastructure. Frank's analysis had prevented what could have been engine damage affecting hundreds of thousands of vehicles across multiple states. The story remained largely within petroleum industry publications, protecting both operational security and Frank's privacy while ensuring that fuel safety protocols received improvements based on vulnerabilities that had been exploited by criminal organizations. Frank returned to his gas station duties, serving customers with the same thorough service that had characterized his pre-emergency work. But something had changed in his approach to fuel quality monitoring and his understanding of how his expertise could continue protecting transportation infrastructure. "Frank, thank you for catching that fuel problem," said Tom Rodriguez, whose delivery truck had been saved from engine damage by following Frank's advice to avoid affected fuel. "The EPA said you prevented a lot of people from having expensive repairs." Frank looked up from the fuel quality testing equipment he was storing, his hazel eyes holding the analytical intensity that had never quite disappeared. "Tom, ensuring fuel quality has been my life's work. Whether I'm doing it in a refinery or a gas station, the mission stays the same, making sure people can trust the petroleum products they depend on." "Were you really a petroleum engineer?" Frank smiled, adjusting his Miller Station uniform that covered federal credentials he'd hoped never to need again. "I've spent my career making sure fuel systems work safely and reliably. Now I get to apply that knowledge directly to helping individual customers rather than managing industrial operations." Dr. Kowalski continued operating Miller Station until he was 84, serving as informal petroleum safety consultant for the EPA while maintaining the trusted service that kept Route 9 travelers safe and their vehicles running properly. Because he'd learned that the most effective fuel safety often comes from people whose expertise exceeds their visible roles, whose dedication continues regardless of official titles, and whose knowledge serves both individual customers and transportation infrastructure with equal commitment to ensuring that people can depend on the petroleum products that keep modern society functioning.